British General Burgoyne's surrender at Saratoga showed America's power to France and hastened the Franco-American alliance. Soon, French ships and soldiers swarmed to help the hard-pressed colonials, and in June 1778, British peace commissioners crossed the Atlantic. Congress agreed they would not negotiate until British ships and armies were withdrawn and independence acknowledged. The British Commission refused and promised a war of desolation before allowing America to become what they called a port of France. Britain now carried the war into the southern colonies. In December 1779, British Generals Clinton and Cornwallis sailed with 7,600 men to begin the southern conquest. They hoped to rally loyalists to their cause and roll up the colonies from the south. Colonial General Lincoln, with 3,000 of his men, was surrounded and forced to surrender Charleston, a disaster to Southern patriots. General Clinton then returned to New York, leaving Cornwallis in charge with orders to subdue South and North Carolina. A little later, Cornwallis defeated a small army under General Gates at Camden, South Carolina. Here, Colonial General DeKalb was killed. Although defeated at Kings Mountain and Cowpens, the British held an edge of superiority as they moved northward. But they were tormented continually by the tactics of guerrilla leaders, including the renowned swamp fox, Francis Marion. At Guilford Courthouse, North Carolina, Cornwallis beat off the forces of General Greene, but his army was nearing exhaustion. After resting at Wilmington, North Carolina, Cornwallis moved northward into Virginia, which he felt was the next logical objective. With help from Trader Benedict Arnold, he moved against Lafayette's small army and occupied a small part of eastern Virginia. But Cornwallis's campaign could not really be called a success. He hadn't rolled up the colonies, hadn't consolidated his gains. Cornwallis was now ordered to retire to Yorktown and there to fortify a base for contact with the British fleet. Lafayette recognized the enemy's vulnerability. In a message to Washington, he described the favorable situation. Washington was busy with his New York campaign against Clinton when French Admiral de Grasse proposed joint operations in Virginia. His fleet was available, and Rochambeau's French army was close by in New York. Washington reluctantly agreed. Rochambeau and his army joined Washington at nearby White Plains. British General Clinton was sure their target was New York. Even when a spy told Clinton that Virginia was Washington's goal, he held to his plans for New York's defense. French ships carrying siege guns slipped quietly out of Newport, Rhode Island, heading southward for the Yorktown rendezvous. Quickly, the Allied army circled past Philadelphia to the head of Chesapeake Bay while the French fleet closed in. The colonial army split at Head of Elk, Maryland, some going by boat, others overland. Meanwhile, de Grasse entered the lower Chesapeake and landed 4,000 troops to prevent Cornwallis's escape by land. The French ships from Newport arrived at the same time and unloaded their guns. Too late, Clinton and British Admiral Graves sensed the Allied strategy. On September 5th, Graves' fleet appeared in the bay, but was driven off by the French. Cornwallis, sealed off by land and sea, was left to his fate. For Lafayette, Washington's arrival with the Allied army was a moment of triumph. Immediately, Cornwallis abandoned Yorktown's outer defenses, and Allied artillerymen placed heavy guns there. On September 6, 1781, the combined Allies, 16,000 strong, moved against Cornwallis. After a single small sortie, Cornwallis pulled his forces back into the town. For a week, the siege continued. The British, outnumbered 2-1 and running out of supplies, faced certain annihilation. Their defenses, mere earthworks, could not long endure. On October 19th, Cornwallis raised the white flag of surrender. British General O'Hara and officers with furled flags marched between the victorious troops in the final ritual of defeat. To the tune of Yankee Doodle, the happy colonists jeered their dejected foes. Thus, in one forceful strike, the French alliance brought victory to the hard-pressed colonies. France's men, money, ships, and strategy had made it possible. Convinced the war was lost, Britain now accepted America's terms for peace. The colonies had won their independence.